Part 1. The last-minute dare I'd heard about the old St. Mercy Hospital since I was a kid. People said it was the kind of place that swallows you whole. Most of my friends didn't believe the stories, but they all liked to talk about them. That night, it wasn't supposed to be me going inside. We were parked across the street, headlights off, the building looming like a black tooth in the skyline. The others dared me because I was the quiet one. I wasn't supposed to say yes, but maybe that was why I did. Inside, the smell hit first. Not rot exactly, but something stale, like paper that's been locked in a drawer for too long. My flashlight beam slid over crumbling paint, medical posters peeling from the walls, and a corridor that bent into darkness. They told me over the years that the hospital's psych wing had a room with no windows, no doors on the plans either, just a number painted where it shouldn't be. Supposedly, nurses used to leave trays outside and walk away without knocking. I'd always pictured it as a joke, an old ghost story for kids who hung around too long after school. But as I moved deeper into the hall, I saw numbers painted on the doors. 302, 304, 306. There was no 308. That's when I noticed the scratched patch of wall between two storage rooms. The scratches weren't random. They were vertical, straight, in pairs. Like something had been clawed at from the inside. I didn't realize my breath had quickened until it echoed back at me, the sound rolling down the hall like someone else was breathing too. I told myself it was the acoustics. Hospitals are good at bending sound. Then faintly, I heard it, 3 knocks from behind the wall. Slow, deliberate, answering my heartbeat. I should have turned back. Part 2, the first shift in the dark. It had been almost a year since that dare, and I told myself I'd imagined the knocks. But the hospital had a way of pulling me back. When the temp agency offered me overnight security shifts, I didn't realize St. Mercy was on the list. The money was too good, and I figured the place had been gutted by now. It hadn't. The first night, I stood in the main lobby with a flashlight and a clipboard, my boots echoing on cracked tiles. The smell was the same, stale, metallic, dry. The hallways yawned into darkness like empty throats. The shift was simple. Walk each floor twice, check the doors, write clear on the log sheet. I was halfway through the second floor when the radio on my belt let out a short burst of static. It wasn't unusual. The building's wiring was ancient, but the noise carried something else. A whisper. I couldn't make out words, just the rhythm, like someone breathing between syllables. When I turned the corner into the old psych wing, my flashlight flickered. Once, twice, then it went dark. I tapped it hard enough to hurt my palm, and it sputtered back on, weaker than before. That was when I noticed where I was standing, between 306 and 310. No, 308. The scratched patch of wall looked worse now. The paint blistered and buckled like it was trying to peel itself off. I ran my glove over the grooves. Cold. Not just cold from the air. Cold that sank into my fingertips like water. The radio hissed again. This time the whisper was louder. Closer. 3 knocks came from the other side of the wall. Slow, even, like they'd been waiting for me to return. I backed away, boots sliding on dust. Somewhere down the hall I heard a soft shuffle, like someone moving barefoot, careful not to be heard, except they wanted me to hear. Part 3, the thing that knocked back. By the 3rd week on the job, I'd stopped telling myself it was in my head. Whatever was in that wall, it knew me now. That night, the building was colder than usual. My breath came out in faint clouds, even though it was spring outside. The fluorescent light in the lobby buzzed and flickered, and the whole place felt like it was holding its breath. I did my rounds slower than usual, delaying the inevitable walk through the psych wing. When I reached it, the hallway felt wrong. Like it had stretched somehow, the end disappearing into shadow. I told myself I wouldn't look at the wall this time, just walk past. But the moment I stepped between 306 and 310, my radio went dead. Not static, just silence, like the channel had been cut. Then the knocking started. Not 3 knocks this time. Dozens. They came from everywhere, the wall, the floor, the ceiling. Too many to count, all in different rhythms, like a crowd trapped just beyond the plaster. My chest tightened. I could feel my pulse in my teeth. I backed away, flashlight trembling in my hand. That's when the wall shifted. Not much, just enough for the paint to crack along one of the deep gouges. Dust trickled down like sand through a timer. I stepped closer before I could think better of it. Through the crack, something moved. It wasn't a hand. It wasn't even shaped like one. It was pale, jointed wrong, the surface glistening in my light before snapping back into the dark. The knock stopped instantly. The silence that followed felt heavier than the noise. I ran. I didn't even pretend to finish my rounds. When I reached the lobby, my radio clicked back on. A single whisper came through, clearer than before. Knock back. I quit the next morning. But sometimes, in the middle of the night, I'll hear 3 slow knocks against my bedroom wall. Part 1. The shortcut I shouldn't have taken. I was never supposed to use the service corridors. They weren't on the regular patrol routes, and the floor manager warned me they hadn't been maintained in years. But the 3rd floor was freezing that night, and my usual loop was blocked by a collapsed ceiling. The shortest way around was through one of those narrow, forgotten hallways that connected the old surgical wing to the main building. The air in there was different, not colder, heavier, like walking underwater. My footsteps sounded wrong too. The echo was slow to come back, stretched out as if the hallway was swallowing the sound before giving it back. Halfway through, I stopped. The walls seemed closer. I hadn't noticed it at first, but now the corridor felt just wide enough for me to pass through with my shoulders brushing the peeling paint. I ran my hand along the wall to steady myself. It was warm. That didn't make sense. The building hadn't had heating in years. Somewhere ahead I heard a sound, not footsteps, breathing. Long, slow inhales and short exhales, like whoever it was didn't want to be heard. I stood still, holding my breath, listening. The air shifted against my face, like the hallway itself had exhaled. I told myself to keep moving, just keep walking until I was back in the open. But with each step forward, the breathing grew louder. Not ahead anymore, all around me. The walls seemed to pulse faintly, like something alive was pressing against them from the other side. Then the light above me flickered, and for just a second the paint rippled, like skin. I turned back, but the way I'd come was gone. Just more hallway stretching into the dark. Part 2. The sound beneath the floor. I kept moving because stopping felt worse. The flashlight beam shook in my hand, cutting across the warped floorboards. The smell was different now, damp, almost sour like wet plaster. Somewhere beneath me, something shifted. A low groan carried up through the wood, so deep I felt it in my knees. I froze, listening. The breathing was still there, slow and steady, but now it was coming from below. Each inhale made the floorboards rise a fraction under my boots. Each exhale sank them back. I crouched, pressed my ear to the floor. The wood was warm, just like the walls had been. I could hear movement, not scurrying, not crawling, more like something large, dragging itself through a tight space. Then it stopped. Silence. And in that silence, 3 short thuds against the underside of the boards. They weren't random. They were answering me. I stood fast, backing toward what I thought was the far end of the corridor. But the air thickened the farther I went, like trying to walk through steam. My breath was loud in my ears now, but it didn't match the rhythm of the other breathing. Half my beam caught a hatch in the floor. Rusted hinges, a square frame barely big enough to squeeze through. The lock was missing. As I stepped closer, the breathing below turned ragged, quick. Whatever was down there knew I was near. The hatch shifted, just a little. Enough for a line of stale, hot air to rush out and brush my face. Something scraped across the underside of the wood, long and slow, like a fingernail. Then another sound joined it, a whisper, not from below this time, from directly behind me. Part 3. The door that wasn't there before. I didn't turn around. Not at first. My instincts screamed to move forward, to put space between myself and whatever had just breathed into my ear. But the hatch slammed shut on its own. The sound echoed far too long for such a small space, bouncing off the walls like the hallway didn't end. When I finally turned, the corridor behind me wasn't the same. There was no sign of the path I'd taken in. No ceiling lights, no peeling wallpaper, just a black stretch with something faint at the end. A shape, a frame, a door. It shouldn't have been there. I knew this part of the hospital like the back of my hand by now, and there had never been a door in that spot. I started toward it, each step making the floor creak louder until it almost sounded like the boards were groaning in protest. My flashlight dimmed with every foot I closed, but I couldn't stop. The door was old, not like the rest of the hospital's steel or reinforced wood. This one looked handmade, crooked, like someone had slapped it together with whatever they could find. The handle was just a bent piece of metal wire. The breathing had stopped entirely now, replaced by a low vibration I could feel in my teeth. I reached for the handle. The metal was warm, too warm. My palms sweated instantly against it. When I pulled, the door swung inward without a sound. Inside was darkness, not the kind my flashlight could cut. This was thicker, complete. My beam just stopped at the threshold. I leaned forward, and the air inside moved, brushing my cheek. It wasn't hot or cold. It was the same heavy warmth as the walls, the floor, the breath. Then from inside that black, something whispered my name. Not loud, not threatening, just certain. The door slammed shut. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the main lobby, my flashlight dead in my hand. The service corridor is sealed off now, but every time I pass it, I swear I hear the slow inhale, the short exhale, waiting. Part 1, the clipboard left behind. I found it on my second week working maintenance in the East Wing, a clipboard lying on the floor outside the ICU. The wing had been shut down for years, but the dust around the clipboard was disturbed, like it had been set there recently. The paper was yellowed, corners curling, but the writing was still sharp. Patient name unreadable. Admittance date blank. Notes: see me immediately upon arrival. The last line was signed with initials I didn't recognize. I looked around. The ICU doors were closed, their windows clouded over with grime. The lights in the hall flickered in a steady rhythm like a pulse. I'd been told not to linger in this part of the hospital. Unstable flooring was the official excuse, but I knew the real reason. People talked. About voices calling from empty rooms. About shadows crossing the frosted glass. The clipboard felt too warm in my hand, like it had been left out in the sun. I set it on a cart and started walking back, but something made me stop. From behind the ICU doors came a faint, rhythmic tapping. It matched my footsteps exactly. I took a step forward. The tapping followed. I stepped back. It stepped back. I leaned closer to the glass, squinting through the dirt. For a second, I thought I saw movement. A figure, blurred and pale, standing just inside. Then the lights went out. When they came back, the figure was gone. The clipboard was no longer on the cart. Part 2. The reflection in the ICU glass. I told myself I'd imagined it, that the clipboard had just fallen, or I'd put it down somewhere else without thinking. But the next night, I found it again. This time, it was leaning against the ICU doors, propped up as if waiting for me. The handwriting was different now. Same form, same yellowed paper, but the notes were new. I'm still here. You can see me if you look. The letters were sharp, pressed so hard into the page that they'd torn it in places. The glass in the ICU doors was grimy enough to hide anything, but that night I felt like I had to try. I stepped close until my breath fogged the pain. At first I only saw my own reflection, pale from the fluorescent light, eyes wide. But as I stared, the image shifted. My mouth stayed still, but the reflection smiled, slowly, deliberately. I stumbled back, heart hammering, and the reflection didn't move with me. It stayed pressed to the glass, watching. Then a hand not mine slid into view beside the reflection's face. Thin fingers, the nails short and jagged. They tapped against the glass, a steady 3 count. I looked over my shoulder. No one in the hall. When I turned back, the reflection was gone, but my breath was still fogging the glass from the inside. Part 3. The exit that wouldn't let me leave. I didn't want to finish my shift that night. Every sound in the East Wing seemed sharper, closer. The hum of the old lights felt like it was pressing against my skull. I decided to take the long route back to the lobby, avoiding the ICU entirely. The halls were empty, or at least they looked that way. Halfway to the exit, I saw it. The clipboard. It was lying in the middle of the floor, right where the main hall split toward the service elevator. The paper was different again. This time, no form, no patient name. Just a single sentence, written huge across the page, "Don't leave." My throat went dry. I stepped around it, but every few feet I walked, the clipboard was there again. Same paper, same message, always just ahead of me. I broke into a run. My boots slammed against the tile, the sound echoing too loud, like the building was amplifying it. The lobby doors were in sight when the lights went out. The glass in front of me wasn't the lobby anymore. It was the ICU doors, the same grime, the same faint shapes moving behind it. My reflection was there too, smiling again, wider this time. A hand pressed against the inside of the glass, the same thin fingers. They slid down the pane, leaving faint streaks. I turned, desperate for another way out, but every hallway led back to the same spot. The ICU doors. My reflection. That smile. Somewhere behind me, a voice whispered, "See me." I woke up in the lobby, sitting on the floor, my flashlight in my lap. The exit was open. Morning light poured in. The clipboard was gone. But when I pass any reflective surface now, I catch glimpses of that other face, just far enough behind me to never catch fully.